This country is nothing without Mexicans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, Venezuelans, Cubans, Honduras.
Tú tienes piquete, mami, yo también.
Come on in and hello, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hola, hola, hola.
Hola, buenos días.
Oh, I'll speak Italian.
Okay, well, there you go.
Hey, so we picked so much fun that when we do this every week, we pick a song, and we were right away when we wanted to celebrate, this Hispanic Heritage and Indigenous Month. We were like, we're doing Bad Bunny because we're like, we love the response to like people that's still going on in the MAGA world. They're just clutching their pearls over Bad Bunny. But so we brought you on today as a delight to everybody to talk about the song and open the show up.
Thank you. Bueno, I'm going to do it in Spanish because it is that week.
We'll put it in the
Bienvenidos,
chat for everybody else, okay? We'll put the English in the chat and you hit it. Go ahead.
bienvenidos y bienvenidas todos y todas a este programa especial de los viernes, nuestro Power Lunch, en donde hoy estamos celebrando el primer del mes de la herencia indígena, hispana y latinoamericana. Los ponemos a todos y son varias. Y vamos a comenzar con el video de Bad Bunny de Nueva York. Si se preguntan qué es Nueva York, lo vamos a explicar después. Y en donde está registrando y está, ¿cómo se llama? Resaltando el acervo cultural, o sea, toda la parte cultural, la fuerza, la fortaleza, la alegría, la contribución de nuestra gente latina a este país. Y entonces juntos somos mucho más fuertes. Así que adelante y disfruten.
Dennis, let's put it on.
Nueva York!
Rolling right in. Holy cow, that was really good. That kind of shook off a little dust that was on my shoulder from last night watching that debate, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Well,
I
we should call him Badass Bunny, really, because everything he's doing right now is so badass. I just love it. He's Badass Bunny.
Badass Bunny. And I think everybody in the room, Belle,
Yes.
Laura, I wanted, just about this Bad Bunny song and what we felt so important today to roll in to bring your perspective and lens with the show today. And I don't know if you looked in the chat, they said, I surrounded a church in Chesterfield with people inside of it. So this is a really we're in the middle of celebrating in the midst of chaos. I mean, seriously, I just read that alert in there and people are trying to figure out who's inside this church. I mean, it must make your heart feel so conflicted. Tell us a little bit about what you're feeling and about just in general.
You know what? We feel that we're under siege. On the other hand, you know what? This is the time to be together. Together, we are stronger. I mean, when we're talking about Hispanic, it encompasses a lot more than just who speaks Spanish.
That's right.
And I think that it's a matter of doing it together and not just, and when I say together, I'm not just talking about us, Spanish speakers, Latin Americans, but also, I think that this show is very important as well, and this opening on sharing a lot of our culture and, in our ideas and in the way we are that sometimes get lost in translation. And they fall through the cracks. This is the time, if you listen at the very end, when it says that America is a continent. America is a continent. We are all Americans. From Alaska to Patagonia, including the Caribbean, we are all Americans. We're part of the same family. We may be cousins. We may have, family issues that, there are like in any family, but we are all family, and families stand together.
Yeah.
All of us.
Thank you. I mean, I think that really sums it up in the sense of what's happening at this time, that we do need to stand together. Yes. Any commentary? I know that people are in the audience thinking about a lot of things going on. If we want to shift to one thing I would want to bring up, and I can't wait to talk about it with our guest today, is that not the monolithic, Hispanic people. Not everybody's the same. We're going to talk about the voting. It's so interesting because we'll talk about, even with the debate last night, even our coalition, is so different. Trying to hold that coalition together is a really challenging thing. So what's anybody want to weigh
Yeah,
in?
well, I wanted to just break in because we had such a good conversation earlier this week about just the intersectionality between, this month where we're also looking at Indigenous people and Hispanic heritage and the intersectionality of that to consider, as Belle mentioned, the history of our continent, the history of America, the Hispanic influence on that, and how
Right.
that influences different cultures, how different cultures have come to read that history in different ways. Right. And so it is a very complex, beautiful tapestry in the culture. And it's something that a lot of folks really are beginning to understand. Just as you said, not a monolith. We certainly learned a lot about that with the November elections in some assumptions that many people made about the block of Hispanic voters that they thought were one way. And we saw that there was a lot of diversity even within their own community, and that, shame on all of us for making assumptions.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
For now.
Yeah, I loved the way that Bill introduced the song to remind us again of who we are. And I think when you popped in with the thing on Chesterfield, it reminds us again of how important it is for us to think about everybody and the safety of everyone. And so as we sort of walk through all of the things that are going through your head right now, I'm going through my head right now. I think about the importance of, understanding that we are a monolith and that we have a huge block of people that we have to protect and support. And so I think that's where I leave this discussion is
Right.
understanding, based on what you were talking about, how important it is for us to have an AG that is going to not just
Yes.
support one group of people, but an AG who will support all of us. And I just think that's a really important thing for us to think
Right.
about.
And I'm showing the front page of the Post. Hostages released. There's a lot of stuff going on worldwide, but the one that caught my eye when you talk about the AG, Trump's foe. I mean, James Comey going in, we saw him being walked in to in the indictment. We also saw Letitia James last night, same thing. So when we talk about this race, we talk about even last night in the debate, we know where we stand in the sense of making sure that we protect people, we protect people in Virginia and our neighbors. When you hear people surrounded in a church, you better damn believe how we're going to stand up for our neighbors and vote for Jay Jones, vote for Abigail Spanberger, and vote for Hashmi, Ghazala Hashmi, and all the delegates on the ticket. That's where I stand right now, just saying.
And it just shows you also that, we've been wringing our hands, waiting for our leaders to have some courage and stand up for each other, stand up for us and stand up for each other. Super disappointing, that performance last night. And that was disappointing. It was disappointing.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so this is so I think, I just want to say, it's really tough in this race, and we know that we're going to have people who are going to stand in all different corners. And I think so what we have to do as individuals is stand up for what we believe in. And I think all of us around this phone, around the Zoom today, understand the difficulty it is to speak for everyone. So we just have to speak for ourselves, but also making sure that we are looking out for those who are not as fortunate as us and those who will need our support and help. And so that's what I think that's what we plan to do.
yeah, no, it's good. So I think we're on time and getting over to the start of the show. Let me get things started, as we say. Everybody, we're welcome. We're so excited you're in the room. It is October 10th. It's unbelievable. We only have so many more days in this race, but you are on the Friday Power Lunch, and we are the hosts that bring you the guests, the issues, the action, fueling the grassroots community across Virginia and coast to coast. We get things done and we make politics as fun as we can. Stick around for the after chat. Past 1 o'clock, we will have the after chat, and that's the fun time. We turn things down. And thank you to our patrons in the room, $5, $10, $25. Thank you. Thank you to our latest October, Carlton Tolsdorf. Thank you, from the union. for being a badass, and our other backers. Thank you so much. And make sure you follow us on Substack, Network Nova Live. We have our free publication on Substack. And if you're a patron, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to make sure that today it's our privilege to have all of our guests in the room for power and representation, voices of leadership and change. And we have Delegate Alfonso Lopez. Welcome. We haven't had him on the show in a super long time. Virginia House of Delegates, thank you for being here. Also, Dalia Palchik, good to have you back. Last time you were here, you were with Dalia Lithwick. So how much fun having you back in the room. Providence District Supervisor of Fairfax County. And I want to say that we have somebody that had to cancel because of family emergency. Tanya Talento is not going to be able to be here, but she will be back. And then from Clean Virginia, we have a great roundtable with Elizabeth Guzman is in the room. Yahoo! And Savannah Wilson, Energy Policy Analyst, and Diana J., Deputy Director of Strategy and Governance, to talk about why are those damn bills so high. So let's get to it, Carrie, with our first segment. I'm going to jump it over to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we got to roll right into it. We're going to bring up Delegate Alfonso Lopez and Supervisor Dalia Palchik, as we mentioned. So we open with Bad Bunny, the controversy surrounding him, and the Super Bowl reminds us that culture is power and representation is everything. So that's why we're talking about power and representation today. So this year's Hispanic Heritage Month theme is collective heritage, honoring the past, envisioning the future. And the future is a new majority in this country. And getting ready for it and leading the way, Delegate Alfonso Lopez, representing the 3rd District, is also co-chairman of the Virginia Latino Caucus. So thank you for being here. And today, Fairfax County Providence District Supervisor since 2020, Dalia Palchik, who's also a French major. So a polyglot, I'm assuming a polyglot in our midst. Welcome. I was very, very honored to see that I'm such a Francophile, in addition to living in Miami for a long time and picking up a lot of Hispanic culture while I stayed there too. But each of you brings your own unique perspective, and from policy making to the local level, and you really show us what representation and power in action, what it looks like. So we're very happy. So let's get into it. I'd like to know basically from all of you, such a huge topic. So I hope both of you can stay for the after chat because we'll never get to all of it. But I'd like to know how your role as a policymaker and a local leader, you're coming to the table to lift Hispanic voices. How do you shape that future? And what does representation mean to you? And we'll start with Dalia.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Gracias. Merci. The teacher in me, language teacher, anthropology, and French. To me, I just see it as a bigger classroom, and I'm excited because here I have in my office, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, one of my favorite books, Sofia Valdez, Future Prez. Here, I'll have to change my background. And to me, it really is, I'm a kid, an immigrant kid who grew up here. There we go. Born in Argentina. Like the president of Mexico, Jewish and Latin American. So my husband gets all the best. But to me, it really is that I never imagined doing this. And it really is about community, about educating, and about empowering the next generation. I do it because I want to see more little girls who are like me, who are now growing up in a county that is majority minority. We were 90% white when I moved here in 1990 with my family. And to see the change in our community and leadership starting to reflect that. I know Alfonso has worked so hard to try to grow our caucus and our representation. And, whether you are passionate in local and state and federal and all of it and advocacy, to me, it's about going to the churches to talk, to listen to communities, to help the mamas, going to schools, Girl Scout troops, and really showing what it is we do. This is a book. It's Future Prez. It's about a little girl, Sofia, whose abuelito falls and trips in a trash heap, and then she figures out how to advocate and how to go to the council, city council, and get things done. It's about getting things done. It's about supporting the community, empowering the community. Whether you're fortunate like myself to speak the language, to love the culture, or you're still learning, wherever you are is okay if you care about people and you just want to help and listen and understand what the biggest issues are. And for us right now, and for our working community, it is housing, it is childcare, it is senior care, It is access to transportation, and of course, those who are fearing immigration, that continues to be an issue. So,
We definitely want to get to some policy issues, but before that, I just wanted to pitch it over to Delegate Lopez and ask you the same question about representation and power, and what does that mean to you?
So first off, thank you all for having this. This is an amazing resource, and also thank you to Dahlia, who is just an incredible public servant and representative for Fairfax County. Um, I've talked about this a lot, but my father was undocumented. He came to this country when he was 19 with $270 in his pocket and dreamed of a better life from Venezuela in the Andes Mountains, and he did not want to be a farmer. He worked as a busboy and as a waiter in D.C. And learned English. He graduated from Northern Virginia Community College when I was 5 years old, and then took one class a semester at George Mason while working 2 jobs until he graduated from college 1 month before I graduated from high school at Robinson High School in Fairfax. Everything I do in terms of policies is geared towards recognizing and hopefully understanding the rich tapestry of what Virginia is. Not just what we're becoming, but what we are. In 1970, Latinos made up 0.9% of Virginia's population. Today, we're 11.4% of the population. You can't win a statewide race without the Latino vote. But here's the thing: when I first got elected, I was the first Latino Democrat, and I was the only Latino in the House of Delegates. Now we have 5 in the Latino caucus. If Elizabeth wins and Jess Anderson, who was originally Jess Rodriguez, is elected, we'll have 7. But there should be 11 of us in the House of Delegates. There should be 4 of us in the state Senate. And the fact is that you can count on, 2 hands and 2 feet, the number of elected officials who are Latino at any level in Virginia. There are only 15 of us.
Well, let's talk about what's going to get you more representation, and that's winning elections. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really tough to understand for some of us, approaching the mixed voting patterns of the Hispanic voter last year and trying to get our heads around that and understand that. But it really illustrated the power of the Hispanic vote. So now we're all out there. Many activists on this call are out there on the weekends, every night, getting out there among the voters. What's it going to take for us to help build trust and connection among the Hispanic voters and help understand how we can lift more voices up through representation? Delegate Lopez.
Well, one of the wonderful things about the Abigail Spanberger campaign is how early in their campaign process they have had senior folks in the campaign reaching out and working with the Latino community. And so I remember back in the day, back in the 90s, when they would even hire Latino outreach, and then they would hire it like 2 months before election day. But it's an integral part of how you do outreach now. And so that's been incredibly important. Also having authentic voices of people who care deeply about our community, like Mark Warner, like Tim Kaine, like Abigail Spanberger. Mark Warner and Tim Kaine and Abigail, they speak Spanish fluently, or Mark less so, but
but Argentinian Spanish.
Yes, exactly. But one of the wonderful things about it, though, is that they recognize and appreciate the importance of our community. But here's the other thing. The issues are fascinating in that, yes, we are a very disparate community. We're not a monolith. We don't speak with one voice. But the polling coming back as of September 15th, it was reported in Politico, is stark. When we had lost a lot of votes, especially Latino men, going into this election cycle, that is now coming back. And Donald Trump is underwater 20 points as of September 15th in personal popularity. In terms of job approval, he's down, I think 28 points or 23 points. And handling of the economy is down 26 points. And so Latino issues are really American issues. The things that are resonating with Latino voters is the economy. It is tariffs. It is education. It is, in fact, HR 1, the big ugly bill. You've got Latinos who are I find this bill incredibly unpopular. In terms of cuts to Medicaid and other in critical programs. And so, for instance, they are 76% concerned about Medicaid cuts. They're 77% concerned about cuts to food assistance. And so, I mean, what's going on right now is on top of that, with regard to education, Title I funding, social safety net programs, housing affordability, they see the problems. Latinos are coming home. And what's also really resonating with our community is the ugliness, the obscene policies, unleashing the military on minority populations and democratic cities, weaponization of the government and the DOJ, and the refusal to abide by due process protections.
Right.
What you're seeing right now is it's Donald Trump, but also the economy that Donald Trump is wreaking havoc upon,
Mhm.
is actually bringing Latinos writ large back home to the Democratic caucus.
Right. I guess it was the same messaging that we had trouble getting across to a majority of voters in the United States. We had trouble getting that across to a majority of Hispanic voters in the United States. So I wanted to hear from you, Dahlia, about your impression about how we can build more connection with Hispanic voters moving forward and regain that trust.
No, thank you. And always great to be here with Alfonso. And I know Elizabeth will be on later. And I meant to thank Laura, who was my appointee. She used to live in Providence. I unfortunately had to lose quite a bit of my district and redistricting because we keep growing Merrifield and Tyson's area. But love to see Laura here. And it really is, it is that I think we have to be cautious. You know, sometimes I think it helps me that I don't feel like an expert. I don't feel like a policy wonk. I have the different languages in my head that sometimes I have to find the right language. And I think the more we, the way I see it, it is, I'm just a teacher in a larger classroom now, right? And so how do we show that level of respect? You know, I was very excited to see, in addition to the outreach to our community, that Abigail, who is my middle name, and she loved it when I told her I never liked my middle name, but now I like it. Is that you know, it really is what do people have to deal with every day? We live in a bubble here, right? And those of us who were fortunate enough, my parents moved here, even though it was hard as an immigrant 30 years ago, they were able to buy a home, right? On one salary, raising 4 kids, $20,000 a year is what my dad made. And now that is so out of reach for so many. So it's not just the voices that are here. I mean, love you all. We were empowered, you're there. But how do we listen and reach out to the families who are struggling to pay the bills, to pay for childcare, senior care, to find jobs where they can afford to live? You know, so many 30 to 50-year-olds have left the region because they can no longer live here, right? And so to Alfonso's point, the Latino community is very diverse. There are so many different areas that we care about, but especially if you think about all of us who've moved here and those who moved here in the past few decades, just what the struggles are, right? It's Maslow's hierarchy, right? We start with being able to put food on the table, to have, imagine, at minimum, you know, those of us who are half or second generation, how do we have at least the life that our parents had, right?
Right.
How do we ensure that you can have one job, that you can be home with your kids, right? Our families, our parents are so important to us. And so when we talk about sort of the making the sausage and the big wonky things out there and the big policy federal ideas, it really, how do we focus more? You know, we all care about different things at the national level, but how do we focus on our community and what the impact is and what our communities needs to feel
Yeah.
safe? Because we know, you know, even if we disagree on big issues like abortion or transgender rights, at the end of the day, everyone cares about their neighbors. They care about their schools, their church, their synagogue, their community, and how do we ensure that that continues to be a safe and vibrant place?
And you know, I want to bring up, speaking of safety, because it is on everyone's mind. The chat is alive with discussion about this church in Chesterfield County. So just quickly, Delegate Lopez, about ICE and their activity here in the Commonwealth, and what are we going to do about the impact of that? What can you do at the House of Delegates and within the Latino caucus to address some of this?
There's a series of conversations being had right now about what are best practices from around the country that can be done at the state level to protect new American communities and immigrant communities. And we'll work on those when we actually, we'll announce some of those when we have the majority and we're able to actually move forward. I think the most important thing, however, for everybody on this call is to know that the only way we can truly help people and reverse the chaos and, you know, send a message to the nation and the globe that the chaos and the corruption and the ugliness is not okay, is to win elections. It's to win elections. And so if we can send that message and we can win big in Virginia, that is a launching pad for the midterms, and that is a launching pad for the next presidential election cycle.
Right. And there is a lot you can do here, right? There's a lot you can do as policymakers in the state to defend our folks. Is that right?
Yes, there is. And I do not want to get ahead of where we need to be right now. But you are exactly right. There is a significant amount that we need to do with a Democratic AG, with a Democratic governor, and with a House of Delegates and State Senate that will support those initiatives. Because what we need are that coalition of governors, that coalition of Democratic AGs standing up to the Trump administration on a whole host of issues.
I tell you, that's what's motivating a lot of the folks on this call to get out there and knock on doors and write postcards and work their butts off to get more wins for you all up in the House of Delegates and the State Senate. We really want to see that trifecta become a reality. But I see that Dalia, they pulled Dalia off. So it must mean it's time for us to move on. Any final words, Delegate Lopez, while I've got you?
Thank you all for being here on this call. Thank you for this resource that you've created, this amazing resource here in Virginia, where people can actually have frank conversations about policy and about the importance of elections and what's going on across the Commonwealth and the country. You know, I am constantly concerned for my family and my neighbors and the impact, as Dalia said, about what these policies mean to people, everyday folks trying to afford food and groceries and trying to deal with the increased costs and deal with issues of democracy and the lack of due process. And like I said, this resource is so amazing because it helps us understand why we have to win these elections. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. And many thanks to Dalia. Sorry, we lost you a little early there, but thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It's great conversation. We'll be in the after chat if you have time. So
thank you, man.
Thank you. Carrie, I think Dalia just disappeared. I think maybe we lost her. So I just been looking for her. Yeah, she disappeared. No one took her off.
Oh, I hope she can make it back for the after chat.
I'm just saying, I just want you to know, I think she was having
some weird stuff was happening with mutes and stuff. I didn't know what was going on. People are coming, going, muting.
Well, yeah,
now.
We'll figure that out. I don't know about that. But anyways, thank you so much. And let's just bring up our next, let me just have a minute. Thank you for that great discussion. Let's bring up next guest, Savannah Wilson, Energy Policy Analyst, and Diana Jay, Deputy Director of Strategy and Governance. And finally, Elizabeth Guzman is here, and she's running for office. That's awesome. A candidate, a former delegate. And can we get her dancing shoes? And maybe just get her shoes on. Can we get her shoes just in this chat?
Oh, let me see if I can show you. Hold on.
Yes. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. That's a big wedge you have there. That's how we stamp out fascists with the big wedges. No, I'm teasing. I want to start, first of all, we're doing a clean energy roundtable talking about why the damn bills are so high. And we really know that people are concerned. We talk about the federal shutdown. We talk about what happened, the start of this DOGE and all the firing. Even before that, there was impacts to the community. And what clean energy is talking about in this particular segment is watching those energy bills go up. But I do want to first just open up and with you real quick, and then we'll go back to you, Elizabeth, about some of your comments about what you heard from the other the delegate and Dalia Palchik on this important power and representation for you. You know, if you want to unmute, for Hispanic Heritage, just a little minute flavor.
Okay, sure. Well, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you, Laura. I think this was the moment it was really moving that you guys are supporting the words in Spanish. I truly appreciate it. We couldn't have a better gift than having Bad Bunny to perform in the Super Bowl this during Hispanic Heritage Month, and he's gonna rock it. Listen, the power of representation is extremely important. I just finished an event with Tim Kaine and Senator Amy Klobuchar, and we talk about connections, and that's how we are going and protect this Commonwealth. And it's about connecting with communities that have been not heard for many years, and they need the voice at the table. And it's not about, as a woman of color with an accent, it's about making our case that we are going to fight for everyone, mainly on these times when people like me who came to this country looking for better opportunities, and I found my own American dream, and that's what it connects us, and how those dreams are trying to be washed away by this administration. But guess what? We're here, and people are voting, and we are winning, and we are going to have a trifecta, and we are proud to have every Democrat on the ballot. We are on the doors every day. Just a funny story really quick. Yesterday, we were talking about, we're knocking on doors, and I happened to be in this community for 3 times talking to all voters, including Latino voters. And one abuelita or grandmother told me, hey, but you were here before. Are you back here? We told you everybody is supporting you. And I'm like, yeah, but I still have 2 people in your house that have not voted. So I'm here to task you to get these 2 voters out to participate. So we are, extremely proud of that, of the Democratic ticket, that we are going to fight for our values of inclusivity, dignity, respect, because everyone,
Yes.
immigrants' rights are American rights, and we are here to be their voice. So thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
I
it.
love that. It's a great opening, because when we talk about, Virginia families right now, and I know that's the economic piece, and the bills are being too high, the energy bills, putting food on the table. I want to start with Savannah Wilson, just talking about, when we talk about this, Savannah, but first of all, welcome to you. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. The sunshine was really normal in this spot I was sitting when I got here. So I'm just hoping it'll stay cloudy for a few minutes so I can read my notes. But fingers crossed.
Yeah, we got it. We got you covered. And if we want, we also have some of this stuff on a slideshow we'll put in. But I think it's pretty simple to just kind of tell people, like, why are the energy bills going up? What's happening?
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons energy bills are going up. But first, I want to draw a little bit of a distinction between Virginia's investor-owned utilities. So the 2 biggest ones of those are Dominion Energy and then Appalachian Power Company in the southwest of the state, and electric cooperatives, because rates for these investor-owned utilities are going up a lot more than rates for electric cooperatives. And the rates for investor-owned utilities are also going up more than inflation. So that's sort of what our organization has mostly been focusing on. And there are a lot of factors that are driving this increase, but 3 of the main ones are our system for regulating utilities, which is actually encouraging our utilities to spend more money than they need to, and obviously then driving bills up for customers. Our utilities' over-reliance on fossil fuels, which have prices that just go up and down all the time, and then huge data center demand that's also driving up costs.
Yes. So, so in that sense, the regulatory system, if you want to dig a little bit more into that, I mean, a lot of people don't really understand it. Can you sort of unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I could go very, very in the weeds on the regulatory
too
system.
weedy,
I'll
but
try
go
to keep
ahead.
it very high level. So there are various challenges in our regulatory system, but 2 of the big ones that are driving up costs are that in the system, the way it's set up right now, the amount of money that utilities can earn in profit for their shareholders depends mainly on 2 things. So 1, the actual percent of profit that these utilities are allowed to earn, and then 2, how much money they spend. So on this first one, utilities are allowed to earn a profit up to a certain percent of their capital investments. So for example, our utility regulator might say, oh, you're allowed to earn 9.7% profit. And then they're allowed to earn up to that profit on all the investments they make. But the problem in Virginia and also across the country is that this level is too high. So analysts have found that actually a lower percent profit level would still meet utilities' needs and also bring costs down for customers. And this level directly affects customer bills, because when utilities are making their investments, we as customers have to pay not only for the investments, but also for this percent of profit on top of that. So if you have a lower profit percentage, you're paying less. And if you have a higher profit percentage, you're paying more. In general, there are nuances, but that's the general idea. So us having this system where the allowed profit levels are higher than they need to be means that
Right.
we're all paying our utilities extra money just to pad their shareholders' pockets. And then the second thing that sort of goes off of that is that our system additionally has all these incentives for utilities to spend a lot of money to maximize their profits, because the system says if you spend more money, then you have the opportunity to earn more profits. So I have a very, very low dollar example just to sort of illustrate that. So let's say the utility's permitted profit is 10%. And
Right.
invest $1, then it can earn 10 cents as profit. But if it has that 10% permitted profit level and invests $100, then it can earn $10 as profit. So obviously, utility is going to want to invest $100 so it can get the $10 profit, rather than just investing $1 so it can get the 10-cent profit. So that means that utilities are constantly looking for ways to find very expensive projects. They don't want to choose the cheapest ways to meet demand. They want to find the most expensive ways to meet demand. They can get more dollars in profit. But obviously, we're the ones who are going to be paying for those more expensive projects. So this incentive for utilities to spend a lot of money then drives costs up for everyone.
Right. And the sense of, even when I think about that, I mean, sort of my head starts to just wander off, because it's just like, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay. But in the end, the overarching thing is that they're figuring out ways to make money, making us pay for it, really. And then when we get to the other point, that's, when I'm thinking about diversification, just seems really smart. And we see, the Trump administration rolling back that diversification and going back to just fossil fuels. Could you just talk quickly about the over-reliance on fossil fuels and really the importance of looking at all different ways to diversify? What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, so all these drivers are connected. So this fossil fuel driver is connected to this really wonky regulatory driver, because fossil fuel plant costs a lot of money to build. So the utilities are like, of course I want to build a fossil fuel plant, because then I can earn all this profit on this really expensive project. But the additional problem with these fossil fuel plants is that when you have something like a coal plant or a methane gas plant, you're paying not just to build the plant, but also for ongoing fuel costs to power the plant every single year the plant is running. And these fuel costs can go up and down a lot. They're really volatile. And we've seen some really enormous price spikes and then bill increases as a result. So just for example, between 2020 and 2022, the cost of methane gas went up 540%. And ratepayers ended up obviously having to pay for that. So in the Southwest Territory, customers saw their fuel costs double in just 2 years. And in Dominion Territory, they spread the costs out, but we're still paying off that debt and are going to be paying off that debt with this extra charge in our bills until the 2030s. So 1 to 2 years of higher fossil fuel costs can have effects on ratepayers for several years into the future. And the problem is these costs are still going to be going up and down. In the next, between 2024 and 2026, they're supposed to double again. So as long as we keep having this huge reliance on fossil fuels, we're going to be tied to these fuel costs that are not predictable, that keep having these really dangerous spikes that then are driving our bills up.
Could I just a kind of off the cuff question, but in the sense of, like, when I first got started in this activism, was the pipeline was such a huge thing, right? Where are we at with that? When you talk about fossil fuels in the pipeline, and I know, where is that project at right now? What is it delivering anything? Or are we just sort of, because it was one of those infrastructure program that also cost money, but wasn't going to do much. Where are we at with that?
That's a great question. I'm honestly not sure,
Diana?
but I would be
Anybody
happy
know?
to dig into it.
Anybody here? Diana? I don't know
Well,
if-
there's two big pipelines that there was big movements across the state resisting. One was the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and the other one was the Mountain Valley
Yes,
Pipeline.
of course.
So I mean, the good story there is that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was stopped due to community resistance and amazing movement that came together across the state on all legs of that pipeline. The Mountain Valley Pipeline did move forward, and we'll be paying for these fossil fuel infrastructure pieces. And part of the case that Savannah's making is like there's alternative sources that don't lock us into not just the infrastructure costs, which is like what that was about, but then the ongoing fuel costs that are fueling these gas plants. And that's really right now the big proposal, is skyrocketing data center demand, and the response is, well, let's build a whole bunch of new gas plants and all the infrastructure that goes with it. And we're seeing both a lot of community resistance to that, but also like a lot of legislative resistance, especially on the angle of costs.
Well, yeah, I know that's kind of our third point back to Savannah, is the other thing driving it is the huge cost of data centers. And then we'll have Elizabeth Guzman really talk about that later too as well. But in that sense, can you talk a little bit about that? That seems to be on everybody's mind. And in fact, I'll have to say my kids' mind is they're all afraid of AI, and they're like, they're just see AI as a problem and the data centers. So let's just get down to just in the sense of regulatory or costs. So let's talk about the cost of data centers as part of this issue.
Yeah, so as I'm sure most everybody here knows, the data center industry is growing really rapidly. We have a really huge data center industry in Virginia, but also throughout this entire region that we're in. And this is potentially a problem. I'm going to focus on the regional level first, and then I'll dig down into Virginia for a few seconds. But so we're seeing data center demand go up throughout our whole region, but our whole region also has a lot of trouble with connecting new generation sources to the electric grid. So bringing new generation sources to like power these data centers online. So that's created this issue where we have all these data centers who are saying they really want electricity, and we have a system that's made it really hard to connect these new electricity sources, which means there's not enough supply of electricity to meet this regional demand for electricity. So that's driving costs up for the entire region. But then the problem as well is that even if we were to build a lot of generation sources and we could connect them all to the grid really quickly and serve all these data centers, obviously these generation sources cost a lot of money. And when the utilities build those sources, the people who are paying their utility bills are the ones who are going to spend the money for that. So that obviously ties back into how are we meeting how are we meeting this generation need? Are we using these really expensive fossil fuel plants again to do it? Are we looking at the most affordable options? Are we not? And then there's a secondary problem, which is how the utilities are deciding what types of customers are going to pay for the costs of these plants. So utilities have different systems to decide, okay, this is how much residential customers are going to pay for all my costs. This is how much industrial customers are going to pay for all my costs. And there are sort of different options for what those systems can look like. But the method Dominion is using right now disadvantages residential customers. So it assigns more costs to customers whose power demand goes up and down, like residential customers does during different times of the year and day and night. And then it assigns lower costs to customers whose demand just stays the same all the time, like data centers. So that means we're in this system where residential customers are being assigned probably more costs than we ought to be assigned, and data centers are not being assigned as many costs as they probably ought to be. And we've had multiple experts who've gone in and looked at this and said, hey, this is not a fair system. We can make a better system. And that has not happened yet, but hopefully it will, and that will help us to start dealing with these cost issues.
No, well, we do, because they're big costs, and they're definitely a big problem. Diana, going over to this, so we have room for this discussion, talking about what we're really going to do about it in this election and how it relates. You're doing the bill, I love the name of it in general. The bill's too damn high tour. So let's talk about that real quick, and then we're going to put it over to Elizabeth to send us home on the data centers, because I think she has a lot in her district. So go ahead, Diana.
Yeah. And thank you, Savannah. And, we're really excited to be launching the Energy Bills Are Too Damn High tour starting next week, and really grateful to partner with Network Nova on the first event. So this is a statewide tour that launches on Wednesday, October 15th. The first stop is in Manassas at Girani Cafe at 6:30 p.m. And, like Delegate Lopez was saying, the thing people are looking for right now is for real leaders to be campaigning on and talking about the economy and the cost of living, and to be bringing real solutions. And it's in that spirit that we launched the Energy Bills Are Too Damn High tour. And this first event in Manassas will be joined by Senator Rome, Senator Perry, Delegate Josh Thomas, and then we'll be putting a lot of energy behind our new candidates. We'll have candidate John McAuliffe for HD 30, and then of course the famous Elizabeth Guzman, former delegate and candidate for HD 22. So these events are to have those real conversations, and then put a lot of energy behind these candidates in the final weeks of their campaign. And I'll say too, I know folks here tune in this is Network Nova, but folks tune in from across the state. Right. So we're launching in Manassas, but then this tour goes onward over to Richmond the very next day. October 16th, we'll be in Richmond. And fun. The headline speaker there is going to be Ghazala Hashmi, who is then going to stay on tour with us until Fredericksburg. We'll be in Fredericksburg on Tuesday, the 21st of October. And we'll be putting some power behind Josh Cole and Nicole Cole. on that event. And then we go out to Blacksburg to end the tour on Thursday, the 23rd. And that one's going to be joined by Senator Jennifer Carroll-Forey, as well as Delegate Rasool, and we'll be putting a lot of power behind the candidates Lily Franklin and Joy Powers to close out the tour there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Every event has free food and drinks and just a really engaging program to talk about the most important issues.
You got me at free food, and
Yeah.
I'm all excited about that. But no, I think it's excellent because I do think it keeps this in front of people about the cost of living, and we talk about this as an issue. So Elizabeth, let's end it up with you about your part in this, and especially on data centers and what you're hearing from people and energy bills.
Yeah, sure. So listen, what is happening in my district and across Prince William County is extremely sad. You know, one of the biggest challenges facing our area right now is the unchecked growth of data centers. You know, when I have conversations in the summer with voters where they have received letters from Dominion asking them that they cannot put their thermostat below 80 because we are running out of power in the middle of the summer. So, you know, my promise to them is that if I go back to Richmond as a delegate, I will work to put a check on this and check data center growth. You know, unlike my opponent in this race, I have never taken money from Dominion or other corporate interests. And that is extremely important because when we want to try to hold corporate polluters accountable, we have to go into the legislative table to make decisions without any influence, right? The only influence that we have should be our voters and their best interests. So, you know, Dominion Energy is already proposing to raise Virginians' electricity bills by $21 a month and more to the, you know, it's just gonna be, we are gonna have tough times ahead of us. So if we don't control them now, by 2040, you know, we're going to see increases on our electricity bills by $1,000 a year. So we have to, first of all, they need to come to the table and they need to, you know, brainstorm, have ideas of how they are going to supply their own electricity because we're not sharing our residential electricity with them. And that's something, you know, to me, as that's like from day one, you come with a proposal and what are you trying to do as you can't compete. And that is just electricity. And we can talk about water and the and everything else,
The
you know.
environment. Let me just say, I went down there to a beautiful brewery you have down that way, at Cattail somewhere. And first thing I noticed, I hadn't been there in a while. I'm like, what the hell is going on around here? I couldn't believe by the 3 silos, there was all these data centers and it looked so ugly. And I could see where the wetlands were, and they're right next to houses. So this is a quality of life. And I think people are waking up about this. And I feel like it's going to be someday not even necessary to have those big structures and all that. But I just end up with just that thought of, like you said, the cost of this and also our responsibility as people wanting these things on our phone, wanting to use all this stuff. We have a responsibility too, because this is what's driving it. And so what are your thoughts on that? And then we got to wrap up. Like
Sure, no. Well, number one, you just hit it on the nail right there. We need to keep data centers away from our neighborhoods and schools.
Right.
They don't need to be there. We have to make them pay their fair share for the electricity they use. We need to make sure that as we're making decisions in the near future, that the voices of the community are being heard,
Right.
and they need to be involved in the process. You know, we need to enforce noise ordinances and environmental regulations as they come in. And we need to stand up against Dominion and Appalachian Power. You know, their time is up. We are going to hold them accountable. And I am proud that on our statewide ticket, none of the candidates are taking money from Dominion, which is going to be helpful as we move into the legislative session.
And
So it's extremely important.
Yeah, Diana, real quick.
I'm jumping on that because, you know, Elizabeth Guzman's being modest here. You know, right now we have a majority of the Democratic Party that isn't taking money from these investor-owned utilities, but Elizabeth Guzman was one of the first people to make that principled stance. And that's why we need to get her back into the state legislature. That was a really courageous move to make early on when you were formally in there. So thank you for your leadership on showing the way to be a courageous leader in this time.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to everybody. Savannah Wilson, it's a pleasure to get to know you. I hadn't met Savannah before. Diana J, just meeting with you all just about this issue is really important. And of course, Elizabeth Guzman, if you're in the room, make sure you're knocking doors for Elizabeth, helping her out. Good to see you, friend. Great to see you. I want to bring up the team. Carrie Short back in, please. And Fennell Norton. And I know Fennell has really been wanting to get her voice on wrapping up the show and giving some points about what she's heard the whole time.
Yeah, I did. So first of all, thank you. I thought that Delegate Lopez's story on his father was just really phenomenal. And it just sort of goes to show hard work. And I think that that's something that we can all sort of take to heart today in terms of how hard it was and the work that was done in order to provide for families. But I also thought it was really important that no matter what community you're in. And so we heard the idea that this community that was majority a white community is now 90% Hispanic community. And the thing is that what we want and need doesn't change. There's still housing, there's childcare, there's senior care. No matter what group you're in, the issues that we care about the most are all the same. And then I thought it was really important as we talk about, no one ever really wants to be a monolith. We always say it, well, any community isn't a monolith. But I think the thing is we need to embrace that word to say that if there are issues that we all care about and there are issues that we want to see happen, that we are going to have to come together and at least be monolithic in that space in order to get the things that are most important to us, most important to all communities to happen. And then we can work on all the other stuff later. And then I think the second point that I would just make is I'm just going to need Savannah's brain, because when she was going through on the utilities, I was just like, oh boy, this is way above my brain. But at the end of the day, it really was understanding the regulations, understanding fossil fuel and how it plays in, and understanding that the data centers are also impacted. And I think she did break it down. At the end of the day, it really is about those companies making profits. And if they are willing to step back on that, then households can actually have bills that are not too damn high. So that's sort of my takeaways from today.
And she had some great resources that they've dropped in the chat, so you all can check that out.
Well, you and I wonder what y'all think about too. Like, when I was talking about just energy reliance and stuff, and a lot of times when we need solar powers, and there is controversial stuff about bringing this, what is that nuclear stuff in here? What was that?
The mini reactors.
The mini reactors, which is like, I don't know enough about the mini reactors, but I think it's just trying to do a little bit of everything.
I think Winsome was trying to take credit for those last night on the debate. Did you guys see that?
She had those in her pants, I think. She couldn't stop talking. She's mini reactoring up. Just my point of view. Yeah, it was like emanating.
Yeah, Catherine. So I just think it's really about, which is what this show is about, which is figuring out how we can be better informed, so that as we're talking to our audience, as we go to different places to have conversations, that we all become better advocates for the things that we think are important. And part of that is understanding all the culture and diversity that we have in Virginia across the country, and to understand it so that we can advocate better for all of us.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I want to bring out the group that's working on a lot of emergency stuff in real time is Viva la Resistance. And if you're interested in being part of the group, you have to be vetted and all that. But if you really, really want to work on issues to protect your neighbors, you can send a private chat to Dennis Orsinger, who's up there holding down the fort. It's a really great group. And they meet every week, but it's so important to our community. And also, you guys, what are you doing? Let's just talk real quick about October 18th and our No Kings. Carrie, you've been doing excellent work down there. So what the hell's up your sleeve for this one?
Our team's fantastic. We are really hitting it on all cylinders. I'm so proud. So yeah, we'll be doing a visibility brigade. We've got those going on every few days down here. One of them made the Rachel Maddow show. Hello. We were pretty excited about that coverage. But then we'll be doing a rally at Virginia Beach Town Center at their Plaza Fountain. I don't know how we're going to fit 2,000 plus people in there, but that's what we're doing. And then we're going to march to the corner, very busy intersection of Virginia Beach. Basically spread the word. Shame on Jen Kiggins. She's not even in Washington right now. We're really tired of her. Want to see her go. And also, this is our last big rally before the election day. So we're really hoping to get a lot of good attention for that rally. Just so much going on. And of course, we're not going to stop. Cova Coalition's having car parades, get out the vote on October 25th and November 1st. So we're going to, no one will be asleep
No
through
rest.
Saturday voting, because we will be driving through their neighborhoods, having a giant car parade that's very loud, and we're very good at it. So we've got that going too. And we're hitting on 17,000 postcards in Cova Coalition.
I'm just so impressed, and it's true. And I know a lot of people are going downtown. We have action, different groups, and divisible plans for if they need volunteers. If you have time to do that, Fennell, last words, and I'm gonna wrap
Yeah.
up and go to the other side.
Yeah, so I'm going to give the last words to Postcards for Virginia, who has been doing postcards for the candidates, and they have written thousands upon thousands of postcards. And now it is the last push for the school board, city council, board of supervisors, and they are amazing candidates. I cannot tell you how close they are to the ground, how much they understand who their voters are. And these are really the important seats that we need to get people in. So there's postcards left. Please contact Robin at Postcards for Virginia, and let's get the last postcards out for these local candidates.
Yeah, and I hope people, if you're around, can meet us next week at the event at the Geronimo Coffee House. Who doesn't want to see Michelle Maldonado? I mean, and the candidates there and all the great people that'll be showing up. But let's wrap this up, because folks, it's no rest for the weary. We have an election to win. We have to stay focused. We have to stay disciplined. We have to stay in the fight, because we are fighting fascism. Just want to say it. That's pretty much it. We're going all in, and we're not going to stop. So I want to make sure that you follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our Substack. Thank you to our patrons in the room for supporting us. I need more October surprises, as we say, but good surprises.
Good surprises.
Good surprises, right? Some more candy in our bag for sure. Support us, stay for the after chat. And next week, Simon Rosenberg's going to be here from Hopian Chronicles, and Michael O'Connor from Dogwood News. And we'll have the grassroots Louisa Borowski back over, the leaders, and probably other, who knows who else we'll have on. But make sure you join us, and let's get up to the after chat, guys.
Yeah, let's do it. And just remember, you are the leaders you've been waiting for.
Do it, ladies. Let's go.